Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by RacerX, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by RacerX, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast. Presented by RacerX.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. Hey, before we get into it, I want to let you know about RacerX's most recent promo. Depending on when you're listening to this, this may or may not be active. You can always make sure what promo is going on, that you're getting the most up-to-date information going to racerxonline.com/Moto Marketing. The free pair of undies, it's super popular. They're the RacerX undies by Ethica. It's a $56 value, just $30. Men's, women's, youth sizes. It's all available, and obviously a lot of great features in the most recent magazine. So be sure to support the magazine that brings you shows like this. Hey, we got a repeat guest, somebody that I was excited to have back on, and this is a great time of year to have him on. We've got Jason Thomas back on with us, and man, he is he's in the thick of it right now with launch time for the 2022 gear, and I tried to let it calm down a little bit for him before we had him come back on. But JT, I appreciate you jumping on with us today.
Yeah, man, it's a wild time of year. It's in a good way. Like, there's a lot happening, and it's exciting, and business is doing really well. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little bit overwhelming at times as too.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, and this was one of the reasons I wanted to have you on now. Obviously, I want to talk about the gear, but with this show being more of a business style show, I've always been curious, like what does JT's life look like day to day during a launch process? Kind of the weeks or months leading up to it, you're in the thick of it, and then kind of when you're done, it's like the Motocross or Supercross season. You're not really done; you're already getting ready for the next one. So, I mean, what day to day, what does your life consist of? Are you just on one show to the next? Are you on dealer meetings? Like, what does that look like for you right now?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. I bounce around a lot. Whether it's moving between departments. I work with our marketing department really closely. A big part of our sales team as well. I'm working with the design team because we have ongoing meetings for 23. We're starting conceptually to think about 2024. And that stuff doesn't stop just because we're launching a line. Like those things are still happening all the time. So for me, it's, I'll have one meeting about an ad campaign, and then I will go straight into something about like a sales program. And then later in the day, we could be talking about, perfect example, we could be talking about finalizing the glove line for 2023. And those all just have to, I have to just pivot from one to the other and kind of reset my brain a little bit, because I'm thinking about this one avenue and then something completely different in a different time frame too, which is really weird, because the stuff with the marketing department that we're working on for this launch is happening in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to plan for things that are going to happen on like this very weekend at times. I'll go to the sales department. We're thinking about our national sales meeting is upcoming in 3 weeks from now, right? So it's a really heavy planning time for that, making sure that our message is consistent. How do we want to deliver that message to 115 sales reps? And then I will go to design, and they're working anywhere from 12 to 18 months out as far as their time frame. So you really have to almost take a second and reset and make sure that the advice you're giving and the insight that you're giving or receiving too correlates with the timeframes that you're thinking about. Because it can really, you can give bad advice because you're thinking about something that may not be relevant for the conversation that they're having. Because you have to remember that all those departments, they're only living in their world. The design department isn't thinking about anything that's going on this weekend specifically. They're thinking about the deadlines they have to hit, which are really extended And then a different department's thinking about things that are happening right now and are going to be delivered like today. So it's pretty wild. It keeps me on my toes. There's never a dull moment. And just every day is a new challenge, and something you probably woke up and weren't thinking was going to happen is probably going to be coming at you.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you feel that your history with being an athlete and racing professionally and just there's zero downtime with that, did that make this transition in what you're doing today? Does it feel at home, or is it still a challenge? Because I mean, I know everybody has busy jobs, but for a lot of folks it's done at the end of the day. And I feel like with folks like you and Max and other people at Fly and WPS, for a lot of you guys, it really doesn't end. I mean, just, the Pulp Show, like you were just on that Monday. I mean, you're on that thing late. And I know you and Steve are friends, but it's still work. So do you kind of tap back into those old like vibes of being a pro racer and use that to kind of keep yourself going through really high energy times like this?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps develop the correct work ethic, because I think for most people, if you just have a 9-to-5 job, when they leave at 5, they turn it off. Just like you're saying, like they don't think about any of that stuff or work on it until they come back into the office. And I work with people that are in that same mindset. That's what they do, and it completely makes sense. For me, that's just not how it works. There's always something going on. I'm getting emails from around the world, like overnight, that sometimes I'm answering right when I wake up, and I get up extremely early. And I'll be working on some of that stuff. And so there's all these different facets to the job that I'm constantly juggling. I work on the weekends almost all the time, which is, for most people, not something they ever encounter. I think the biggest adjustment, though, because all that stuff works for racing, like that's the same schedule. There is no real time that you're just completely off. Even on your off days of riding, you're probably doing some sort of bicycle ride or some sort of recovery workout. So that all kind of made sense. Like I was comfortable with that. But I think the biggest adjustment was being in an office. When I'm here and I'm in Boise, I'm at the office for 10 or 11 hours a day. That's a pretty big adjustment to get used to, because with racing, you're building your own schedule, you're moving around, you're training, you're riding, but you're the one that's determining those time frames. You can come and go as you please. If you want to ride a little bit later, no big deal. But being in an office and having a really set parameter as far as when you're going to be here and when you can leave, even if you have nothing, like there are times during the year when it's pretty slow and I don't necessarily need to be here that long, or I could leave early in the afternoon and nothing would really change. You're probably going to be here anyway in case something pops up. That's a pretty big adjustment, and not really one that was for the better. Some days you're just like, man, I would love to go home right now, but I'm going to be here for another few hours. And that's just what the job is. That's a part of, adjusting to a new world.
Yeah. One of the things that you guys have really been able to hang your hat on the past few years is the Formula helmet, and probably the biggest announcement you guys have had with this launch was the CP, and more of a price-friendly yet high technology with the safety that's involved for the consumer. So I feel like the last few years you and your team have really had a lot on your plate with educating the market on, the Formula and then the CC and now the CP. What is that like? You really, the Formula is still a new thing, and now you're 2 iterations past that with trying to bring it to different price levels. What is that like, especially this year with the CP? Some of the things that are involved, whether it's just on podcasts educating the media to really making sure the reps and the dealers understand it. What role do you have in that, and how do you get involved with it?
Yeah, a little bit of all of it. From the very beginning, you're working with the marketing team for, okay, how are we going to share this message with the end consumer? Because the most important aspect of that is for them to understand the technology and the underlying goals for us of how to keep people safer. Because if you understand the materials, you understand what it does, you understand what we're trying to accomplish, then you can apply that to all kinds of products and price points. And it's really, that's what matters most, is the concept. If they understand that, then we've really won, because as we introduce new products, as we bring, we brought out the CC last year, we bring out the Formula CP this year. Once you get it, then you can apply that same thought wherever you want to go with it. So that's really what we've been continuing to work on, is how do we take a very sophisticated material with a incredible advancement in science, and how do we simplify that so even just the most casual consumer can understand it on some level. And that's easier said than done. It's an ongoing process for us to try to do that. Because if you want to get super technical, like it can go all the way up to the highest levels of molecular science with, the physicists that created it. But for most people, that's overkill. They never are going to go to that, nor myself, I'm never going to understand it all the way to the top level. But if you can understand what it's doing, how it disperses energy, how it absorbs energy, and how we're able to get the helmet so light, then I think you've won. And so that's really where it starts. Then you trickle that down to, of course, the dealer side as well. So I'll get out personally, get out with our reps. We have 115 out in the field, and I will see dealers. That's what I was just in the Boston area doing that exact very thing with a sample helmet, showing them how it works, showing them we have these great demonstration tools that show them how the material works, how it disperses energy compared to a standard, helmet foam or protection foam. So they get it. And once you understand something and the dealer understands it, it becomes much, much easier to sell something on their end. And so, yeah, my job in a nutshell most often is I'm a teacher, whether it's consumer, dealer, rep. I have to go learn it from the people that invented it and then find creative and simple ways to teach it.
Yeah. I guess similar to that, as far as, things that I see you guys spending a lot of time kind of educating the market on. Something that I've always been intrigued with is the development of not really new products, but taking a product that somebody has and getting it to the level to where it's the standard is it being used in Supercross. And something you guys have mentioned quite a bit, and I think this past year Brayton ran it, was the Zone Pro goggle, and getting more athletes in that. And I genuinely don't understand this process. What makes a goggle some of the marquee vision brands and now somebody like Fly, that you have so many products and you're trying to become one of the marquee brands with goggles as well. What's the difference between a goggle that's not ready for a Supercross athlete versus one that is? And does it make a massive difference in what you see as far as the market reacting and buying when you have more athletes on the Supercross and Motocross track using that goggle? I know that's a lot, but does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think it's a process, because it's not always just the equipment. A lot of times it is, right? You need to make sure you have the product that's built to perform to a level that they need. That's, of course, a prerequisite. And thankfully, the factories that we work with, these vendors, they build most of the products for most of the companies. Mm-hmm. So they already know what it takes. They know the spec. They know all of the foam requirements to absorb sweat. Like, they know all that stuff. They're the professionals at that. So that's fairly easy, because they already know, okay, what level do you want this to? Do you want it premium level? How many layers of foam? So that's a pretty quick process, but you need to build it with the frame dimensions that you want. Then you need to do just tons and tons of testing. And then that's really the most time consuming part of the process, is before you ever approach a rider like Justin Brayton, you have to have an incredible high level of confidence that that product's going to deliver when it matters most. Because if that product is the reason that a rider doesn't get on the podium like Justin Brayton did at Houston, that's inexcusable. And it's really hard to ever come back from that. Yeah. We would never want to be the weakest link in any equation like that, with all the effort that's going into it. So with all the, Lane Shaw, we did a lot of testing with privateer riders last summer. Before we ever even signed a deal with Justin Brayton, we just tested and the roll-offs and laminates and every step of that process. Not only that, we also took our employees, Dalton Braun, Ricky Rickards, all of our athlete managers, and they have to become goggle experts as well. Mm-hmm. And all the build process. And, you have to put Vaseline in the bottom so it catches dirt if it's bouncing up and down, something that's going to catch that dirt. And the tear-off builds, the roll-off builds, and every single thing that can go wrong, you have to have already thought about it before it could possibly go wrong, and have some sort of preventative step in there to make sure it doesn't go wrong. Yeah. And a lot of that stuff, unfortunately, it just takes time to become a master of that stuff. And Could we have gone sooner? We probably could have. We probably could have gone live Supercross 2020, and maybe we would have been okay, but we weren't willing to take that chance. We wanted to make sure we had every step dialed in, and I attribute that is why we had a successful 2021 campaign, is because we were patient enough to wait to make sure that we were ready.
Sure. Something else that is a little bit new this year, and you elaborated on it on the most recent Pulp show that you were on, and it's the youth gear. And that was something that when I was looking through the catalog, a lot of the youth gear caught my attention. I was like, man, that's cool. And I didn't really realize it until I heard you say that normally the youth gear is kind of a, and we'll also do the same thing over there. Like you kind of just copy the colorways and make it available in smaller sizes. And you've done some different things. And I think it's the Youth Kinetic Rebel, the blue and the light blue and the black and the gray. I mean, there's some really cool designs. And you'd mentioned on the Pulp show that really took some effort to get, I think, total buy-in on the fly side to develop some unique stuff just for the youth. And you'd mentioned that there was a resurgence of, or an influx of youth riders due to COVID. Elaborate a little bit on that line and what it took to bring some fresh, unique stuff for youth-specific riders.
Well, for any brand, the first question you have to ask yourself is, do you have enough volume to support its own line? And we use what are called rollers, which are the independent graphics applicators to the gear. Those are what create the graphics on the gear. Well, having a different roller is a pretty big expense. And so that's something you have to factor in. You also have to figure out if you have enough volume to meet the minimum order quantity per colorway within that graphic. So those are the first questions asked, because if you can't do those things, then the project is dead. And that's why you see most companies go with the same graphic for youth and adult, because it is the volume is such a heavy indicator for as far as you can or can't. Once you realize you can, which COVID certainly helped that, there was such an influx of new riders and families and all these things that got out on dirt bikes and going camping on the weekends, that helps everybody, not just fly racing. But we saw a huge growth in the youth segment, and we wanted to support that. We wanted to try to keep growing that and really give that our best effort. And we felt like that, and we still do, we feel that adult tastes don't necessarily mirror youth tastes. And I think that's a pretty fair concept to agree on. So then we had to ask ourselves, okay, if we like this adult concept, how can we change it up to make it more appealing to a kid, right? Because what happens is a kid goes on, or a child, whatever, goes on a website, they go on their iPad, or they walk into a store, preferably, and they're looking at this wall of items. They're going to pick what they like, what jumps out to them, what wild design, wild color really appeals to them. So we have to try to put ourselves in that child's mind. And it's typically bright, wilder the better, the more aggressive the better. So we've really tried to reflect that in our designs. We have one that's almost completely high vis, right? So it's crazy bright. We launched the Rebel graphic for this year, which is looks like graffiti. It's almost like a tattoo look, but it's a little bit more graffiti based. That's been really, really successful right off the bat as far as our preliminary numbers. So we're really trying to take some chances in those youth lines, because those are what seem to be rewarded. If you try to keep it clean and simple in the youth stuff, it just doesn't seem to resonate with younger riders.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the last things I was wanting to make sure I brought up was the BOA system that you guys started implementing on the light pants for this past year. This is the second year of having that implemented. How has that been? I know there was some education and some people were a little weirded out by it at first, but then once they tried it, I felt like, I have a set myself, and it was strange for me to grasp, but then it makes perfect sense. So has there been any adjustments made to that, or what's the feedback or kind of the response been now that you're year 2 of that concept on the light pant?
Well, I think you're pretty spot on. I think it is an adjustment period that we're going through, because it is a pretty revolutionary change. When you remove the zipper completely, people getting into that pant, it's different. And if you're willing to approach it just like you would a pair of gym shorts or basketball shorts, it's no different. I think the most challenging aspect for the first timer that's putting this pant on is if they will allow themselves to put one, and it sounds cliche, but one leg on at a time.
Yeah.
it gives a little bit more freedom, and you can pull it up. And once you get it over your knee braces and over your hips, it's really easy. And any tightness that you feel during that part of the process loosens back up. And I think that's been our biggest task, is really to let people know, like, hey, we understand the first time it's going to feel tight when you're pulling it on. It's not going to feel the same because you don't have that huge opening where the zipper would typically be. But if you're willing to work through that after the first time, when you finally get the pants on, you tighten them up and you get out there on the track, you're going to understand why we made this change and all of the backside advantages. And that's really why we did it. You don't have all the stitching where the zipper goes in and the buckle goes in. That's a really big binding point. And we were able to remove that. And that's really the plus side is, yes, there are challenges getting it on. We understand it feels different. Different is always going to be a challenge. People don't like change. But once you get past that and you give it a really good, fair shot, we believe that the advantages outweigh any challenges.
Yeah. What do you have coming up next? I mean, obviously you're on kind of the backside of this launch. We're a little past halfway in the outdoor season right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you have coming up? I mean, do you continue to hammer down on dealer education on the new lines? Like, what do the next few months look like for you?
Yeah, so, as far as development goes, we're really trying to concentrate on protection. The Rheon technology has really opened a lot of doors for us. And in the beginning of this podcast, I was speaking about if a customer or a dealer understands the underlying function of Rheon and how it absorbs energy and can protect you, then the applications really open up and we're able to apply it to different products. So that's what we're working on. I think in the 23 season, the 24 season, you're going to see more and more of that. We did introduce it into a barricade impact short, which is kind of the next step. So you can kind of see where we're going, and that's a little bit of foreshadowing of what's coming from us. But yeah, development takes time. These processes are they're slow at times to make sure that you get a project exactly right.
Yeah.
As far as my near horizon, as far as time, I will be heading back to Europe for MXGP in a couple weeks. We have our big national sales meeting that's coming up middle of August, which is a huge event for us. All of our reps from around the country all convene here in Idaho, and we haven't had one for a few years because of COVID. So that's going to be a really nice change to get people back here. They haven't been here since 2018 as far as here in Boise. So that's exciting. It's a ton of planning, but it really gets everybody kind of fired up and get to rally the troops a little bit. So trying to get through August, and then September is Motocross of Nations, more MXGP for me, and then trying to wrap up this Lucas Oil Pro Motocross series. So I'm hoping that once we get through August, September, October, I can take a little bit of a breather, and then November will start to ramp back up towards Supercross again. So it's like I said earlier, it's never a dull moment.
No.
Just when you think you get to relax for a second, something either goes wrong or a new project is fired up, and then it's all hands on deck again.
Yeah, it's I've learned that about this sport. I used to want to work for RacerX when I was a kid, and then when I started my own business and got them as a client, I realized that they run the ragged edge, and it's not just them, it's pretty much everybody in the sport. And we work in the sport, but we don't have to work the same timelines that you guys do. So I'm sure, but you love it, you enjoy it, it's a brand you're passionate about, so I'm sure it makes it that much more enjoyable. Flyracing.com. Go to your local dealer. Stuff should be shipping here soon, right, JT? Or probably by the time you listen to this, it is shipping, I believe.
Yeah, I think August 1st is a fair timeline for it to start showing up in dealers. And our logistics team and the half of our sales team, that's literally all they're working on 24 hours a day right now. And I mean 24 hours a day, is trying to get this in and out of warehouses right now, which is it's a difficult task because it's a great thing for our industry. The sport is exploding, and it's not just dirt bikes, it's street bikes and side-by-sides and everything, but that really creates log jams at warehouses, and all, UPS and FedEx are overwhelmed with supply chain issues too. So it's challenging at every step, and even worse right now with every gear brand out there trying to cram out all their product.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, man, it's JT, it's always great to have you on. I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future. I saw this as a good opportunity to have you come on and chat, and I appreciate it, and look forward to the next time we're able to connect.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Anytime, man.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impact Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpact.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.